Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our end of May TechByte. I can't believe that we're basically at summer, but it's awesome. Got my pool open. I hope everybody else is getting ready for Memorial Day weekend and all that stuff. Today, we're going to take a quick look at Quantum IoT Protect, which is our baked into our firewall's IoT protection engine and capability. I have this slide deck. I'm going to show you like very briefly, probably like 3 to 4 slides that are cherry picked in here, and then we're going straight to a demo. So, plain and simple IoT devices, just in case anybody's, unclear, needs a refresher. An IoT device is called Internet of Things. These are devices that are connected to the internet, but are not our typical what we think of as like endpoints, right? They're not laptops, they're not desktops, they're not smartphones, right? They're not tablets, they're cameras, smart thermostats, smart building controls like elevator controls, right? They're TVs, and the list goes on and on. They make smart refrigerators and smart blenders and smart washing machines, and basically anything that you can connect to the internet kind of falls into this IoT bucket, right? And they can be launching points, right? If there's a vulnerability, if there's a known issue, if there's some kind of malware written for them, they can be launching points, right? Someone can infect that device and work their way from there deeper into your network. The slides I wanted to show you real quick is we're going to skip right over once we kind of discuss real quick the problem, the IoT Protect, right? So in R81.20, which is our newest GA version, we have bundled in this IoT Protect, and it comes as part of the NGTX package. So if you have the NGTX package with the threat emulation and that sort of thing, you have this license. We can detect the devices that are IoT devices behind your firewall. We can then autonomously, which is really cool, deploy and install rules based on those objects. I will show you the rules. I'm not going to show you how to set them up. It goes pretty quick though. It also gives you the benefit of our other security engines behind your firewall. So for example, the IPS signatures have in them quite a few signatures to block exploits surrounding IoT devices. And then this last one we could talk very briefly about. It's not really part of the demo per se, but we also have an agent essentially that we can put into the firmware of devices. This is more for the manufacturer side than for the consumer. But we actually can work with manufacturers, add our agent to their firmware, and protect that device essentially almost like an antivirus or endpoint protection baked into it. And we've been working with some vendors on that, and that's really cool, right? So this slide's basically what we're going to talk about in the demo. I did just want to show you really quickly. We do have quite a few protections for IoT devices. And you can see right here, this is straight out of the IPS database, right? So it's in there, right? It's in your firewall. And it can be enabled on pretty much any quantum, well, it can be enabled on any quantum gateway. The only one that is not current, but actually I think is in early availability, is the SMB devices. So those will be coming real soon. But everybody that's running the main train, regular Gaia, if you're already 120, you can do this. That's about all I wanted to see on the slides. And I know we just blew through them quick, so I don't see any questions. So I'm going to hop over to the demo. And if you have a question while I'm doing that, feel free to, put them in the chat, raise your hand, Q&A, send a smoke signal, whatever is best. So the IoT protection is kind of like it's managed here on the Infinity portal, but it also has a component that touches your on-prem machine. And so what you do is there's a section of Smart Console where you tie the API to the Infinity portal and you start this up. Once it's started, it starts gathering information about the devices on your network, what it sees through the packets. And as you can see here, we have our overview page, right? And you can adjust some of these widgets because some of them don't have data right now, but essentially what you could see, the big stuff is that we have devices both in prevent mode and learn detect mode. And I'll explain that prevent is what you might think. We see something bad, we block it. The learn and detect is kind of like in a state where we're allowing things through, but we are learning about the device and profiling it. And that's a way so that if you, when eventually you do flip them to prevent, if you have to make a custom rule to allow some website or something, that can be done so you don't have an issue with your IoT devices. Probably the most important widget on this overview screen, at least to me, is assets by zone. Now we're calling we're using the word zone. I know that zones is kind of already has a meaning when it comes to firewalls. But in here in the IoT, the zone, think of it as like a group or a group of similar devices, right? So you can see we have like an IP phone zone and a printer zone and a smart TV zone and the NASs, right? So, you know, think of it as machines that are like each other, right? And if you click on any of these, it'll take you over to that zone and you could read more about it. I'm going to go ahead and click on the assets tab real quick. So as you can see, it has all these devices and it has them listed out in like a table, right? And we could pick out any device we might want and learn a little bit more about it. So I don't know, as an example, we got a Brother printer. So here's a Brother printer. This is the model number. Here's its IP address. I believe we also have its MAC address here. We are confident that this is the device we say it is, right? Because sometimes when we match on the traffic, it's a little bit less confident. And we can, you know, learn a few things right off the bat about that device. Now, as we can see, it's a printer, right? It's going to be in that printer zone. And we can move over to that and see it, right? So if we go over to zones, we can dig in a little bit about what is the policy around these devices, which devices are in each zone and what's kind of allowed. So sticking with, I guess we'll stick with the printers, right? So here's the printer zone, right? And we see that if we go into access control, you'll see that here's the type of devices that we have, right? We have one Brother printer, we have 4 Hewlett-Packard ones, one from Kyocera and one from Xerox in the environment. And you'll see right below it that there are approved destinations for it to visit, right? Now this one, and this is important to see, this zone is in prevent, right? So again, it has a list of allowed sites that these devices can visit. Otherwise, it is stopping them from going out onto the internet. That's the prevent mode, right? And this is really zero trust, right? That we talk about a lot, right? Because we're only allowing these specific sites for Brother machines, these specific sites for HP machines, et cetera, right? And these are all update sites and specific services on the printers and stuff like that. And I mean, you can see even just looking at them, like almost all of these are Xerox. Same thing over here, it's all Brother, right? But that's how our zones work. And the prevent mode, right? There probably won't be much in here. Let's see. But you can see events related to this zone, right? So let's see if we call it. Okay, here we go. So you can see here that there's a bunch of stuff like this machine, firewall IoT drop. This machine reached out to some kind of connection, right? And couldn't get there because it fell into the prevent rule. It wasn't one of those sites that the Brother printer is allowed to go to. So that's kind of events related here. Of course, they're also going to be on your logs in Smart Console, right? So you'll see them where you normally go as well. One more thing about zones, so just to show you, I'll pick out cars because that's kind of cool, right? See if we got anything in there. You'll see that the cars one, oh look, there's a Tesla, which I closed the thing, a Tesla, right? So we've got our Tesla protected, so no hackers can hack our Tesla. This one, however, is in learn detect mode, right? So what we're going to do is we have specific approved destinations. Those are allowed. We are going to allow and log any other connections for now. If we flip it to prevent, which I'm not going to do, we flip it to prevent, then it will stop any other connections that are not specifically these two approved destinations. Any questions on that part so far? And I'm looking at the chat, looking for hands raised, whatever, however you'd like to do it. Okay. Cool. So, and again, just throw them up anywhere. Anytime you got a question, I'll definitely come back to it. So I know what you're probably saying. Joe, this is all cool. Where can I see these rules? I don't know nothing about them. A little scary, just make rules automatically. You can see them on your Smart Console, and this particular environment is tied to Smart One Cloud, making this a nice, friendly demo for us SEs. So what you'll see, right, is if you enable this protection, a new policy layer will come, and it's the IoT Protect. And in here are all our IoT rules. Now, at surface glance, it looks like there's only 5 rules, but there's a lot of rules in here because they're all inline layers, if you're familiar, right? So literally what this rule says is that any IoT device out to the IoT internet goes through this series of rules. And we actually have sub rules layered in here too. So, and these are all these rules are created automatically when you do this. Literally, you generate a token, you connect your on-prem management to the Infinity portal here. You click a couple buttons on the IoT to get that engine running. And then literally the Infinity portal puts these rules onto your management and installs them. Without you pressing anything, touching anything. It's pretty cool. So like you can see, for example, right, there's a whole bunch of like general rules, and then we get more specific in as far as our zones here. So let me see if I can zoom this a little bit so we can see it better. It didn't help very much. Okay. Let's do like this. There we go. Okay, so you see, for example, those are the IoT rules. And then now we have our specifics based on those zones we were talking about, right? So like you see, we have VoIP devices, thermostats, our UPSs, lighting, smart TVs, etc. And since we were talking about printers, let's look at the printers, right? So we pop open this inline layer, which leads us to more layers. But you can see that as we go in, we have different rules based on the different types of machines that we saw, right? Based on manufacturer, right? The rules for Xerox machines, rules for Hewlett-Packard machines, rules for Brother. And you'll see this is where those websites that we saw, the websites that were allowed back in the Infinity portal, this is where they are, right? So if we want to change these, we want to add one, we want to remove one, we want to flip one to, not logged or something, this is where the rules exist right here. And again, you can see it's the rules set up so that any Brother machine is going to be subject to this set of rules, right? So Yeah, that's the rule base and how that kind of gets set up. Again, this is all this would take forever to set this up. I don't know how long it would take, but it would take a long time, and there'd be holes because you'd be sitting there searching through, and maybe you missed a log that the machine generated, or I don't know, you didn't think of an IoT device, whatever. This is all automatically done for you, and it takes just a few minutes, which is really nice. So again, I'll pause for questions for a minute or two. I don't see them yet. That's okay. I have one more little piece to show you. Okay. So I'm actually going to hop from here back into the IoT section of the portal here. Um, One more thing we can do, which I think is really cool, is a firmware scan. So you can choose devices from the list, right? And there's quite a few types of devices here. We could give it information. We can grab the file of the firmware, right? And then you run the scan, okay? And literally it's going to scan the firmware for any sort of known vulnerabilities, any issues with the code, all those kind of things, any static hard coded passwords that are in there, things like that. And when you're done, it generates this report. And as you can see, this report is quite detailed, but it tells you a little too fast, tells you, the risk of this machine, right? So what kind of machine is it? What's its OS? This one, which I think was kind of cherry picked, has quite a few vulnerability and risky things about it. And as we start scrolling in, you could see straight up. So it's got weak password, right? Like probably the original password that came with it, right? It also has a lot of CVEs, right? And we could click on any of these, right? So if we do this, we could pop open a new tab as soon as I get these meeting controls out of my way. And you can see right here, read about this vulnerability. Okay, so this vulnerability could lead to a denial of service and possible code execution, right? By exploiting the handle special function. So you could literally click on these CVEs and see what these vulnerabilities are in this device, right? And then this goes through a lengthy list, and it has the CVSS score, which if you do a lot of time with CVEs, you know that the higher the score, the more critical or bad the vulnerability is. Again, this is a pretty pretty porous device, right? Um, it sees that it can find private keys on the device, right? And they're easy to find. It's got expired certificates. So you can see that this, just in general, this report gives you a lengthy write-up about what's wrong with this particular firmware and things that you can do to fix it, right? Yeah. So scroll to the bottom here. Okay. All right. So that's about all I wanted to show you today. Um, Any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or raise your hand. I see that I have one already, which is, how to, can I have this on, the question is essentially, can I have this on other versions of Gaia? Today, no, you must be on R81.20, which is, again, the latest general available version. It should be an easy upgrade to it from, basically anything that's north of R80. Okay. Any other questions? Um, oh, and just a reminder, this technology, the license is with the NGTX package. So if you have NGTP today, or NGFW, you need to bump up to get it. But we can help you with an eval license to try it out, of course. Any other questions? Nothing seen yet. Okay. Well, I'm going to hold for another minute or two, but if we don't see any more questions, that's fine. I do appreciate everybody hopping on and taking their time out to see this. And of course, I'm going to put this up on the YouTube. And if anybody has any feedback or any topics they may want to see in a future Tech Byte, by all means, reach out. So hope this was helpful. Have a great day.